She is Naomi, stood frozen at the entrance, her uniform too new, her shoes too polished, her heart pounding too loudly in her chest. The iron gates of St. Augustine Academy gleamed under the morning sun, tall and unyielding, like guardians of a world Naomi had never belonged to. Behind them sprawled manicured lawns, stone buildings older than the city itself, and students in crisp uniforms walking confidently as if the earth itself bent to their footsteps. Her mother squeezed her hand. "You worked for this," she whispered. "Don't let anyone make you feel less. You deserve to be here." Naomi nodded, but doubt gnawed at her. St. Augustine was an elite school, the kind of place where politicians sent their children, where legacy names filled the honor rolls. Naomi wasn't a legacy. She wasn't wealthy. She was a scholarship kid from a neighborhood the other students would never set foot in. She had dreamed of this school for years, the libraries stacked with centuries-old books, the laboratories that looked like something out of a science documentary, the promise of a future beyond limits. But standing at the gates now, she realized dreams had shadows. As she stepped inside, a hush fell around her. Students turned, some curious, some amused, some cold. Naomi adjusted her backpack straps and forced her feet forward. "This is my chance," she told herself. "I just have to survive the divide." What she didn't know was that survival would come at a cost, and the line between belonging and betrayal would twist into a maze of secrets, lies and choices that could change everything. Naomi's first class was history. The room smelled faintly of polished wood and chalk dust. Heavy curtains draped the windows, muffling the sunlight. At the front stood Mr. Whitmore, a tall man with sharp glasses and a sharper tongue. "Ah," he said, glancing at the seating chart. "Our new scholarship student. Naomi James, is it?" The word scholarship clung to his tone like something sour. A few students smirked. Naomi nodded quickly and slipped into the empty desk at the back. The lesson began. Mr. Whitmore called on students at random, but his gaze skipped over Naomi as if she weren't there. When her hand finally shot up, eager to prove herself, his eyes slid past her to the boy in front. By the end of class, Naomi's enthusiasm had shrunk into silence. The cafeteria at lunch was worse. Naomi scanned the room, tray trembling in her hands. Groups were already formed. The debate team clustered by the windows, athletes by the vending machines, and the legacy kids, the untouchables, at the center. She caught whispers as she passed. "Is that her? She's the one from Eastwood, right? My dad said they're letting anyone in these days." Heat rushed to her cheeks. Naomi finally slid into an empty seat at the corner. Alone. By the third period, she thought things might settle. But in chemistry, her lab partner, a blonde girl named Claire, wrinkled her nose. "Listen, I'll do the experiment. You just write the report or something, okay?" Naomi hesitated. "But I'm good at experiments." Claire cut her off. "It's fine. I've got it." The dismissal stung sharper than the fumes rising from the beakers. At home that night, Naomi tried to smile when her mother asked how her first day had gone. "It was fine," she lied. "Just different." But alone in her room, she stared at the ceiling, the whispers replaying in her head. Different. Outsider. Not enough. She had thought knowledge and hard work would be enough to bridge the divide. She hadn't realized the divide was built into the very walls. Weeks passed, and the pattern repeated. Naomi aced every quiz, but her victories were invisible. When she spoke in class, teachers often overlooked her answers, only to nod approvingly when a wealthier student repeated the same thought minutes. Later, in group projects, she was assigned the menial tasks, cutting, gluing, typing notes, while others took the credit. At first, she resisted, but the rolled eyes and dismissive tones wore her down. At lunch, she tried joining a group once, sliding timidly into an empty chair. The conversation froze. A boy glanced at her and said, "Oh, this table's full, actually." Naomi's throat tightened as she stood, tray wobbling, and walked away under their stares. One day in English class, Mrs. Caldwell assigned an essay on what defines belonging. Naomi poured her heart into it, writing about her grandmother who had immigrated with nothing but hope, about her own struggles to feel accepted in spaces that seemed designed to exclude her. She ended with a line she was proud of. Belonging is not granted by privilege. It is earned through resilience. When the essays were returned, Naomi's was marked with a red B-. The comment at the bottom read, "Too emotional, lacks sophistication." She overheard Mrs. Caldwell praising Emily, a legacy student, for her essay comparing belonging to wearing the right shoes at the right party. Emily had received an A. The unfairness burned in Naomi's chest, but she swallowed it. What would speaking up achieve? She was the only voice. At home, her father noticed her silence. "Naomi, talk to us. What's happening at that school?" She shook her head. "Nothing. I'm just tired." But she wasn't just tired. She was unraveling. The walls of St. Augustine were lined with achievements, portraits of alumni who had become leaders and legends. Naomi walked those halls and wondered, would her face ever hang there? Or would she remain the shadow slipping between frames, unseen and unremembered? Every day the divide grew wider, and Naomi began to fear that no matter how hard she worked, she would never be able to cross it. But then came the announcement that would change everything. A citywide academic competition, prestigious, televised, and judged by the very people who decided scholarships and future placements. St. Augustine Academy was expected to win, as always. The school began selecting its top students for the team. Naomi had the grades, the skills, the passion. Everyone knew it, yet when the list was posted on the bulletin board, her name was missing. Whispers spread through the hall. Some said it was a mistake. Others smirked knowingly. Naomi stared at the board, her fists trembling, her chest hollow. "They don't want me here, not even when I've earned it." But what Naomi didn't know was that this injustice would ignite something far greater than a competition. A secret was about to unravel, one that could shatter the very image of St. Augustine Academy and force everyone to confront the truth about who really belonged. Naomi stood frozen in front of the bulletin board, staring at the list as though her name might appear if she just blinked hard enough. It didn't. She had expected unfairness. Yes, but not this blatant. Her grades were among the highest in the school. She had stayed up night after night preparing essays, solving equations, practicing speeches in front of the mirror until her voice went hoarse. And yet, she was invisible. Again. Claire and Emily, her so-called teammates from group projects, were on the list. Naomi knew they couldn't solve half the equations she had mastered. She clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms, then she heard it. A whisper. "Of course, she's not on there. They can't have her representing the school." It was spoken softly, but the venom carried. Naomi turned sharply, but the group of students was already walking away, smirks etched on their faces. She wanted to scream, to rip the paper down, to demand an explanation. But Mr. Whitmore himself walked by, noticed her staring, and said with a thin smile, "Better luck next year, Miss James. These competitions require polish, Polish." The word stuck like a thorn. That night, Naomi sat at her desk staring at her books. Her reflection in the darkened window looked back at her. Tired eyes, determined jaw, shoulders hunched from carrying too much. "Polish," she whispered bitterly. "Do they want knowledge? Or do they just want someone who looks like them?" She almost gave up. Almost. But something inside her refused to stay quiet. If they wouldn't let her compete officially, she would find another way to prove herself. The competition day arrived with the buzz of cameras and news reporters. Parents filled the auditorium seats, polished shoes tapping, diamond watches glinting. Naomi wasn't supposed to be anywhere near the stage. But when she overheard Claire and Emily whispering in the restroom about how nervous they were, how they hadn't even studied half the material, an idea sparked. If they failed, the school would be embarrassed. And if Naomi could step in, even for a moment, she could show them what they had tried so hard to bury. The quiz began. Questions flashed on the screen. Claire stammered through an answer about historical treaties. Emily miscalculated a basic formula. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Naomi sat at the back, fists clenched. Every time they faltered, she mouthed the correct answer under her breath, her heart racing. Then came the breaking point. A critical math problem was displayed, one Naomi had solved weeks ago in practice, though no one had cared. Claire froze, eyes darting desperately toward the teachers. Mr. Whitmore shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The silence grew unbearable. Before she could think, Naomi stood. Her voice cut through the hush. The answer is negative 1.75. Gasps filled the hall. Cameras turned. All eyes landed on her. Claire gaped. Emily hissed, "What is she doing here?" Mr. Whitmore's face turned pale. "Naomi, sit down. You are not on this team." But the judges leaned forward, intrigued. "And she's correct," one of them murmured into the microphone. A ripple of shock moved through the crowd. Naomi's heart thundered. She had done it. Proven. Herself, even if only for a second. But the price came quickly. After the event, Mr. Whitmore pulled her aside, his voice icy. "You humiliated this school today. You embarrassed your peers, undermined authority, and disrupted an official competition. Do you have any idea what that means?" Naomi swallowed hard. "It means the truth slipped out, and you can't stand it." For the first time, she saw his mask crack. His jaw tightened, his eyes darting away. He didn't deny it. The fallout was immediate. The incident spread on social media, clips of the mystery girl in the back, who answered what the official team could not. Comments poured in. Who is she? Why wasn't she on the team? She's obviously smarter than the others. The administration tried to bury the story, but whispers became louder than silence. Teachers debated in the staff room. Students whispered in hallways. Some mocked her still, but others, quietly, began to admire her courage. Then came the assembly. The headmistress, silver-haired and stern, summoned the entire school. She spoke of discipline, respect, and knowing one's place. It was clear she meant Naomi. Naomi sat in the audience, trembling. Her chance was slipping. She could stay quiet and survive, or she could speak and risk everything. Her mother's words echoed, "Don't let anyone make you feel less." Naomi stood. Her voice shook at first, but grew steadier with every word. "With respect, headmistress, I know my place. My place is here. In these classrooms. On that stage. In this school. You all saw what I can do. But every day, you pretend not to. You tell me I don't belong. Not with words, but with stares, with silence, with doors that are closed before I even knock." The room went still. Teachers shifted uncomfortably. Students glanced at one another. Naomi's voice broke, but she didn't stop. "I worked harder than anyone to get here, and I won't apologize for it. If you don't see me, that's not my failure. It's yours." Silence followed, heavy and suffocating. For a moment, she thought she had destroyed herself. Then, slowly, a sound rose from the back. Clapping. One pair of hands, then another. A few students stood, then more. Soon, the hall was filled with applause. Not all, but enough to shake the walls that had seemed unbreakable. The headmistress's face was unreadable. Mr. Whitmore looked as though he had swallowed a stone, but Naomi? She stood taller than she ever had. She knew the battle wasn't over. Prejudice didn't vanish in a day. Tomorrow, she might face whispers again. She might still eat alone. But something had shifted. She was no longer just the scholarship girl. She was the voice that refused silence. the one who had cracked the mask of St. Augustine, and once a crack appears, the walls can never be the same. Weeks passed, and the storm of whispers around Naomi's defiance slowly faded. The applause she had once received dwindled into silence again. The same walls of St. Augustine that had trembled in that assembly seemed to rebuild themselves, thicker and colder. Naomi walked the halls unnoticed. Teachers still favored the same faces. Classmates still laughed in corners when they thought she couldn't hear. Nothing had really changed, except her. She no longer smiled at home. Her mother asked questions she couldn't answer. Her father grew silent, carrying the weight of her pain like it was his own. One gray morning, Naomi sat alone beneath the oak tree, her books unopened in her lap. She stared at the campus stretching before her, grand, glittering, and suffocating. She had spoken, she had fought, she had borne her soul before them all, and yet the divide remained. A younger student approached, clutching her books nervously. "I just wanted to say, you were so brave," she whispered. Naomi forced a smile, but her eyes betrayed her exhaustion. "Brave doesn't change anything," she murmured. "Not here." The girl looked startled, then quietly slipped away. Naomi leaned against the tree, closing her eyes. For the first time, she wondered if she had been wrong to believe this place could ever accept her. As the bell rang in the distance and the students' chatter filled the air, Naomi sat motionless, alone, unheard, and unseen, and the iron gates of St. Augustine loomed in the distance, unchanged, still guarding a world that had never truly been hers.